30 top engineers failed, but a poor delivery girl solved it all and stunned the Millionaire CEO. They gave 30 engineers 30 minutes to stop the disaster. None of them could. But she did? A delivery girl, with sweat on her shirt and tofu in her bag. She walked into a storm she didn't cause, whispered a few commands, and saved everything. No one thanked her, no one remembered her name, except the man whose world she unknowingly rewired. The man with $1 billion company and a heart so broken he'd forgotten how to feel. Until she made him remember, the girl who was never meant to stay. Chaos had a sound, and at Stratus Tech headquarters, it screamed in red from every screen. Alarms blared like a heart in panic. Engineers rushed between consoles. Command lines blinked like warnings no one could read fast enough. At the center of it all stood Ethan Hale, CEO of the most powerful tech empire in Silicon Valley, a man known for firing with silence and building with brilliance. He checked his platinum wristwatch. 30 seconds, he said flatly. Or you're all gone. The room froze. Someone coughed. A junior programmer typed until his knuckles turned white, but nothing responded. It's looping, a systems lead whispered. No access to the core, another muttered. Ethan didn't blink. He folded his arms like a judge in a courtroom, waiting for the verdict he'd already written. Then the door opened, and everything changed. A girl, soaked in sweat, wearing a delivery backpack and a cracked motorcycle helmet, stumbled in holding a bag of lemon tea and tofu. "Order 49, she called out, blinking at the confusion. Unsweetened. For Ethan Hale? No one spoke, no one breathed. A security guard stepped forward. "Miss, this is a restricted floor." She checked her phone. "It says 48th floor, Stratus Tech, Ethan Hale. Right here." Ethan turned. His voice was low, unreadable. "You're 1 minute late." "There was traffic," she said, catching her breath. "And a bus on fire." She held out the food. Then she glanced at the screen behind him and frowned. "Wait, you're trying to force a reboot while the cache is still active?" A snort came from one of the engineers. "Great. Now the delivery girl wants to lecture us on security protocol." But she didn't flinch, she stepped closer, pointing. "That line? If you keep it running, it's going to trigger defense mode. It'll freeze the entire system." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "You know what you're looking at?" "I did 3 years in computer science," she said. "Dropped out, long story." He paused. "All right," he said softly. "Fix it." Everyone turned. No one objected. Perhaps they knew, in some quiet place inside, that they had already failed. She moved quickly, like it was instinct, not memory. Deleted one string, rewrote another, unplugged a panel, switched to backup power. Her hands didn't shake. 3 seconds later, the alarms died. The screens calmed. A single line blinked on screen. "System stable, access restored." Silence. Thick, awed. Ethan stepped forward, searching her face. "Your name?" She hesitated. "Luna. Luna Rivera. Do you want a job?" She blinked. No. I have 6 more deliveries to make." And just like that, she was gone. Into the elevator, out the doors, back to the city that didn't know what she had just done. She didn't know there were 36 security cameras watching her. Didn't know her name would be whispered in tech forums before midnight. He didn't know a billionaire had just learned her name and wouldn't be able to forget it. The rain was soft that night. One of those California drizzles that doesn't quite soak your clothes, just slows your steps. Luna parked her motorbike beside a cracked sidewalk and entered a dim apartment in the Mission District. The walls were thin, the rent was due. The fridge held rice, an onion, and a box of expired milk. Her little brother Pedro was trying to fix a leaky faucet with a bent spoon. "Where's Mom?" she asked. "Sleeping," he said. "She didn't eat dinner." Luna touched the photo on the wall. Her father, smiling beside a plate of rosemary-seared lamb. Carlos Rivera, framed for a poisoning he didn't commit, found dead in his cell 2 weeks later. Her voice was steady when she said it out loud. "Tomorrow will be better." But she didn't believe it. Until the black car showed up. A sleek, silent limousine, waiting at the end of their cracked alley. She didn't recognize it, not until the window rolled down. Then Ethan Hale looked up at her from the back seat. "I've been looking for you," he said. That night would lead to more than a job. It would lead to a cooking contest with a 3-star chef, a rigged TV show, a broken window, a bruised CEO bleeding in his office, clutching a flash drive with her father's name on it. It would lead to sabotage, betrayal, and a secret so deep it took 2 decades to bury. But before all that, before the headlines, before the kiss in the rain, before the rooftop confession and the wedding toast that made every guest cry, she was just a girl with a helmet, a tofu lunch, and a scar that no one could see. And he was just a man who'd forgotten how to be human. Till she walked into his system and typed the code that made him feel again. Chapter 1. The Girl with a Hidden Past. The next morning, Luna stood outside a convenience store, the air sharp with the tang of sun-baked asphalt and engine oil. She stared at the front page of Tech Today Weekly, heart thundering. Delivery girl fixes what 30 engineers couldn't. Who is Luna Rivera? Her face. Right there, beside headlines about cyber warfare and cryptocurrency crashes, she clutched her delivery backpack tighter, the weight of it suddenly unbearable. She hadn't even told her mother what happened yesterday. And now, everyone knew. She spun away from the newsstand, ducking her head and slipping into a side street. This would ruin everything. Across the city, inside a penthouse where everything gleamed and nothing was ever out of place, Ethan Hale watched the footage again. There she was, that moment where she paused, tilted her head, and typed like she was solving a crossword, not diffusing a corporate meltdown. He hit pause on the security video, zoomed in. Her eyes were focused, her mouth moved as she thought, then she smiled when the system returned to normal. She looked relieved, not proud, not impressed. Just relieved. He didn't understand it. He couldn't stop watching it. "Her name is Luna Rivera," said Zhao, his personal assistant, standing just behind him. "Find everything you can," Ethan said. "Already did. She studied at UC Berkeley, computer science, full scholarship, left in her 3rd year." Zhao hesitated. Her father, Carlos Rivera, head chef at one of the top restaurants, accused of poisoning 15 guests at a private banquet, died in custody. Ethan turned slowly. Died? And hanged himself 2 weeks into holding. And she, what? We need to stop this. It would put a peddling blow-up of us and them. You should recognize. You do remember Jerry, didn't you? She property law. Zhao handed him a thin file. To take care of her mother and her brother. They've been evicted twice. She's had 5 jobs in 3 years. Ethan's fingers hovered over the photo in the file. She was smiling in it, but her eyes looked tired. "I want her," he said quietly. "Back here. Today." Luna pushed open the door of her apartment. It smelled like rust and rain. Pedro ran up to her, waving a tablet. "Look, you're on the news." She grabbed it from his hands. "Don't show this to Mom." "But you're famous." "No," she said, kneeling down. "Famous people have money. I have late rent and a boss who probably just fired me." As if summoned by fate, her phone rang. It was her supervisor at the delivery app. "Luna," he said, "you're out. This is too much attention. This isn't good for the brand." "I didn't ask for this. Bring back the uniform." He hung up. That night, there was a knock on the door. She opened it to find 2 men in black suits standing outside. "The CEO of Stratus Tech would like to speak with you." She almost laughed. "You mean Ethan Hale?" They didn't answer. One handed her a black envelope. Inside, a card. No name, no instructions, just an address. She looked down the hallway. Her mother was asleep. Pedro was drawing with a crayon stub. This couldn't be real. And yet, maybe it was the only thing that still was. At exactly 7:00 p.m., Luna arrived at a building where the windows looked like mirrors and the doorman didn't smile. A sleek silver car pulled up. Ethan Hale stepped out. He didn't say hello. He just looked her over. Not with judgment, but with that same unreadable intensity that froze a boardroom with one glance. "You're late," he said. "By 2 minutes." "That's late." "I came by train." He opened the door. "Let's eat." Inside the restaurant, the world shimmered. Crystal lights, waiters who glided, dishes that cost more than rent. Luna felt like a smudge in a painting. They sat in a private mezzanine overlooking the city. "I want to hire you," Ethan said. "Not as a coder, not yet. As a consultant on the encryption project. You think differently." She scoffed. "I didn't finish college." "I don't care about degrees. I care about outcomes." She stared at him. "Why me?" He studied her. "Because you saw something 30 trained engineers didn't. Because I watched the footage a dozen times and still can't tell what made you notice that line of code." She shook her head. "You don't know who I am." He leaned in. "But I will." Her throat tightened. She looked away. "You Googled me, didn't you?" she said quietly. His silence was enough of an answer. "Then you know my father, what people say, what they still say. I know what the press printed. Do you believe it?" He didn't answer. A waiter arrived, placing down 2 ornate plates. Luna didn't move. The scent reminded her of her father's kitchen. Of Sundays before everything broke. "My dad cooked better," she said. "Did you cook with him?" "I used to. A bit." "I have a proposal," Ethan said. Luna raised an eyebrow. "Tomorrow, 9:00 IEM, come to Stratus Tech. I want to test something." "What kind of test?" "You'll see." "And if I say no?" He smiled, for the first time. "Then you go back to your deliveries, and I go back to wondering who the hell you are." Back at home, she found a court summons on the table. The landlord wanted them out by next week. Pedro was asleep, with her dad's old cookbook beside him. She stared at the ceiling. Everything was falling apart. But somewhere in the mess, a man in a perfect suit had looked at her like she was the answer to a question he hadn't asked before. She reached into her coat pocket. The black card was still there. She held it like it was something sacred. And maybe, just maybe, it was. Chapter 2. An offer with strings attached. The limousine arrived at 8:30 IM sharp. It gleamed like a secret outside Luna's apartment, drawing curious stares from neighbors hanging laundry or feeding pigeons on the fire escape. Luna stepped out in her best jeans, the least wrinkled blouse she could borrow from her neighbor. Her brother Pedro stood at the window, wide-eyed, mouth full of cereal. "Is he inside?" she whispered to the driver. "No, ma'am. Mr. Hale will meet you at the office." She climbed in. The leather seat smelled like cedar and silence. She couldn't stop fidgeting. Her whole life, people like Ethan Hale only appeared on screens or in scandals. Never in her driveway, never for her. She looked out at the passing streets. Storefronts giving way to glass towers. Her world disappearing behind her. At Stratus Tech, the security team didn't ask questions. They already knew her name. A woman in a sleek black suit led her through a sun-drenched lobby where everything glowed and nothing felt real. "Miss Rivera," she said crisply. "Mr. Hale is waiting upstairs." The elevator glided instead of rising. On the top floor, a room full of executives turned when Luna walked in. It was quiet, too quiet. "Gentlemen," Ethan's voice carried, "this is Luna Rivera, the woman who saved your jobs yesterday." A few nodded, others stared. One cleared his throat in a way that made her skin crawl. Ethan turned to her. "You'll wait in my office while we finish here." His tone was sharp, but not unkind. His office was a world of white and steel. No photos, just a window that opened onto the whole city. She stood near it, arms folded, unsure what to do with herself. Then the door creaked. Ethan stepped in with 3 men behind him, one she recognized from yesterday's meltdown. "This is outrageous," the older one snapped. "You're hiring a delivery girl as a security consultant?" Ethan stayed calm. "She solved what you couldn't. She got lucky." Ethan turned to Luna. "Then let's test that." Later that afternoon, Luna stood frozen at the edge of a 5-star ballroom. Ethan's voice rang clear. "Tonight, Stratus Tech is hosting our top investors. The head chef is Elise Dubois, Michelin-starred, internationally acclaimed. Luna swallowed hard. "And I want you," he said, "to prepare a dish that's better than hers." She blinked. "You want me to compete with her? If you win, I'll offer you a full-time position and $50,000. And if I lose?" He gave a faint smile. "You go back to your bike. No shame, no damage, just a gamble." Behind him, one executive chuckled. "She probably can't even fry an egg." Luna's jaw tightened. "I accept." The kitchen buzzed with tension and white jackets. Elise Dubois ran her brigade like a general. Luna stood alone in a corner, apron that barely fit, ingredient she hadn't chosen spread before her. Ethan appeared briefly, watching from the glass partition. Their eyes met, but he said nothing. Luna glanced across the kitchen. Everyone else had assistants, sous chefs, expensive tools. She had herself, and one nervous dish boy named Miguel. "You," she said, "you know how to chop?" He nodded eagerly. "You're my assistant." He blinked. "Me?" Elise let out a loud laugh. "Ah, très bien. Dishwasher to delivery girl. This is cute." Luna ignored her. When the clock started, she didn't flinch. She remembered her father's voice. Good food doesn't need to impress. It needs to mean something. She seared the filet with cracked pepper and thyme, whipped the potatoes by hand, built a reduction sauce with rosemary, wine, and a secret touch of lemon zest. Her father's trick. Miguel followed her every instruction. "Cooking isn't just heat," she said, plating her dish. "It's memory." When time was up, the judges tasted in silence. Ethan watched from behind the glass, unreadable. Elise's dish was immaculate, artful, distant. Luna's was simple, fragrant, warm. One judge paused. This tastes like home." Another smiled, "Like something my grandmother made before she died." Then the vote. 3 slips of paper. 2 read Luna Rivera. Gasps filled the room. Sophia Menz, a socialite and critic, stepped forward, scowling. "She's the daughter of Carlos Rivera," she spat. "The chef who poisoned 15 people." The room fell quiet. Eyes turned. Luna stood there, spine straight. She looked at Sophia, then at Ethan. "My father was innocent," she said quietly. "He died trying to prove it. I've been running from his shadow my whole life." Sophia laughed cruelly. "Bad blood runs deep." Then Ethan stepped forward, cold fury in his voice. "You're done speaking." He turned to the room. "If anyone believes heritage defines character, I suggest you pull your investments now." Silence. Sophia stormed out. Ethan looked back at Luna. "You've earned this." And in front of all of them, he handed her the check. $50,000. A job. And something far harder to name. A second chance. That night, in the car ride home, Luna stared at the check in her hand. She didn't know what scared her more. Losing it? Or what it might mean if she actually deserved it. Chapter 3. Cooked with shame, served with courage. Luna thought she could sleep that night. She was wrong. Even after she tucked the check into her father's old cookbook like a pressed flower, even after she heard Pedro's soft breathing in the next room, and her mother's oxygen machine humming like an uneasy lullaby, her eyes refused to close. Because this win wasn't clean. It came with whispers. By morning, the internet had already rewritten the story. Criminal's daughter defeats elite chef, a fluke or fraud. Stratus Tech, CEO's mystery hire. Nepotism, romance, or revenge. A clip from the gala had gone viral, Luna placing her dish in front of the judges. In slow motion, she looked confident, proud. The comments beneath the video didn't care about the food. "I wouldn't eat anything made by a Rivera." Is Ethan Hale sleeping with her? The chef's daughter strikes again, watch your wine, folks. Luna slammed the phone down. Outside, the street buzzed with traffic and fog. Inside, her hands trembled. She made it as far as the market on the corner before it happened. "Luna?" The voice was sharp, nasal, familiar in the worst way. She turned and froze. Rita Menzin. Blonde. Smug, sculpted. The daughter of Victor Menzin. The man who had once accused her father publicly on live television. I almost didn't recognize you without a helmet, Rita said loud enough for the customers in the next aisle to turn. Luna's throat tightened. Rita stepped closer, all teeth and cruelty. Still pretending your dad didn't kill those people? My father was innocent. Rita laughed. Is that what you tell yourself when you look in the mirror? Luna's jaw clenched. Honestly, Rita went on, you showing up at that gala was pathetic. You really think cooking one plate erases years of shame? Luna didn't answer. Her phone buzzed. A message from her mother. Don't forget the pain meds. Love you. She took a breath, stepped past Rita, didn't look back. But the burn had already begun. Later that day, she sat across from Ethan in his office. Her uniform was different now. She wore a blazer she found at Goodwill and pinned back her curls. She looked the part. She didn't feel it. They're coming after me, she said softly. Ethan leaned back. I know. Then why keep me around? He didn't answer right away, just turned toward the window, hands folded. Because truth isn't something you run from, he said. It's something you walk through. She stared at him. You really believe that? He looked at her then, eyes softer than before. I have to. That evening, Luna walked into her childhood bedroom and pulled down an old box from the closet. Inside were newspaper clippings, court documents, photos from the night her father was arrested. She spread them across the bed. Headlines screamed betrayal. Smiling family pictures sat beside mugshots. Somewhere in the middle, her father's handwritten recipes. At the bottom of the box was a sealed envelope. Her name was scrawled across it, her father's handwriting. She opened it with shaking fingers. Echoed again. If I'm gone by the time you read this, remember this. I loved cooking because it brought people joy. Don't let them turn that into something ugly. Don't stop creating, even when it hurts. You have my hands. Use them. And forgive them, one day, even if they never deserve it. Done. She cried for the first time in months. Not because of the shame, but because of the reminder that love like flavor lingers. The next day, Ethan stood in front of the board of directors. The room smelled of money and distrust. She's not just a name in a scandal, he said calmly. She's the only person who's seen through our system's core vulnerabilities. She saved us. A board member scoffed, so you're defending a liability. I'm defending a mind, Ethan said, and a future asset. Why her? Ethan turned, steady as ever. Because she's willing to fight for what she believes in, even if it costs her everything. The room was silent. Outside, Luna watched the exchange through a glass wall, heart in her throat. He was risking his reputation for her. She didn't know why, but she knew what it meant. That night, Luna returned home to find the electricity had been cut. Pedro was under a blanket with a flashlight, reading. Their mother sat quietly, knitting by candlelight. Luna dropped her bag and sank to the floor. I can't do this anymore, she whispered. Her mother looked up. But you are. Everything I touch, it turns into a fight. Maria reached out, placed a fragile hand on Luna's. Maybe, but you don't run from it. That's the difference. Luna exhaled. Outside, the city glowed with indifferent lights. Inside, in the flicker of candlelight, a girl who had once delivered tofu in the rain now sat with a check for $50,000 under her mattress. End of war just beginning. And still, she chose to stay. Chapter 4. The Woman Behind the Firewalls. Luna hadn't meant to stay long. The deal was simple. 6 weeks, consult on Stratus Tech's security upgrade, get paid, and get out. But nothing about this job or this man was simple. She sat at her new desk in the 42nd floor tech wing, staring at a screen most would find impenetrable. To Luna, it looked like a puzzle half solved. The lines of code blinked slowly, waiting. She sipped stale coffee from the company machine and got to work. Within the hour, she'd flagged a vulnerability no one else had noticed. By noon, she had rewritten a script that shaved 2 seconds off their boot speed. By 3, people had stopped whispering, "Isn't that the delivery girl?" and started whispering, "She's not just lucky, is she?" Across the hall, Ethan watched her through the glass wall of his office, her face half shadowed by the glow of the monitor. Her fingers moved like memory, not method. She doesn't second guess, he muttered. Zhao, standing beside him, raised an eyebrow. Like someone else we know? Ethan didn't smile. Have legal draft her full-time contract and give her stock options. You're trusting her fast, Zhao said. Ethan turned away. Talent is rare, and trust isn't the same as blindness. But something else lingered behind his words. Curiosity, yes, but something closer to guilt. Luna stayed late that night. The building emptied out around her, lights flicking off, one row at a time. She pulled her sleeves over her hands. The air conditioning hummed like a low warning. She clicked open a restricted archive by accident, then froze. Carlos Rivera. Her father's name. A file. She hesitated, then clicked. Denied. A red alert flashed across the screen. Her stomach dropped. A message popped up 5 seconds later. Mr. Rivera, please report to the executive floor now. Ethan's office was dark when she entered. Only the city behind him shimmered, glass towers and late-night taxis. I wasn't snooping, she said immediately. It was an accident. I saw my father's name and… Sit, he said. She did. He studied her for a moment. Why did you really take this job? Her voice cracked. Because my mom's sick. Because we're 3 months behind on rent. Because I have a brother who thinks school is magic and I didn't want him to grow up knowing only how to disappear. Ethan said nothing. Then, slowly, he turned his monitor. Your father's case was mishandled, he said. There were inconsistencies in the autopsy reports. The toxicology results were signed by a lab that shut down 2 years later under investigation. Luna's breath caught. We're still digging, Ethan said. But this isn't just about food poisoning. It was a takedown, maybe even a cover-up. She leaned forward, her voice a whisper. You believe he was innocent. I believe in patterns, Ethan said. And this one smells like fear. Luna wiped a tear from her cheek. Why are you helping me? She asked. Ethan didn't answer right away. Then he said quietly, because I've been wrong before, and because I know what it feels like to be judged for something you didn't. The next day, Luna arrived to find her computer missing and her access card deactivated. She froze. Security approached. Ms. Rivera, please, come with us. They led her not to HR, but to a sleek black car waiting outside. Her heart raced. Inside sat a woman in a crimson dress and diamond earrings. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Sophia Menzen, she said, extending a gloved hand. Victor's wife, Rita's mother. I know who you are. Sophia crossed her legs. You're becoming a problem. Luna didn't flinch. Or maybe I'm just not going away. Sophia leaned in. Be smart, dear. Take your paycheck. Leave the past where it belongs. Luna stared at her. You're scared. Sophia's smile wavered. I'm not the one being watched, Luna added. Then she got out of the car and shut the door, hard enough to make the windows tremble. That night, Ethan found her in the server room, crouched beside a blinking tower, eyes red. You were right, she said. It was a setup, and it's not over. He knelt beside her, something raw in his face. Then we find the truth, he said. And what if it costs you everything? She whispered. He looked at her, not like a CEO, like a man who had finally stopped pretending he wasn't lonely. But at least it'll cost me something that mattered. They didn't kiss. Not yet. But in that silence, in that space between breathing and breaking, trust was born. Chapter 5. Smoke and Shadows. The storm came, quietly. Not in the sky, but in the news. By morning, 3 outlets had run stories about Luna's criminal lineage. Talk shows speculated on her suspicious rise at Stratus Tech. An anonymous board member was quoted saying, "She's not the company's future, she's its risk." Luna scrolled through the headlines with shaking fingers. Her coffee went cold. Across town, Ethan watched the same footage in silence. Victor Menzen, Zhao muttered. He's behind this, feeding stories to the media, stirring outrage. Ethan's jaw flexed. He's trying to pressure the board. It's working. The silence hung heavy until Zhao added, Sir, She might be safer if you distanced yourself. Ethan turned. His voice was ice. We don't abandon people because it's convenient. Zhao nodded slowly. Then you better keep her close. That night, Luna didn't go home. Ethan sent a car. He didn't offer a hotel, he offered his guest apartment in Pacific Heights. Neutral ground with ocean views and thick walls. She hesitated at the door. He stood beside her, holding it open. I don't need charity, she said. It's not charity, he replied. It's protection. Her jaw tightened. From what? The way he looked at her then, it wasn't corporate. It was human, bruised and scared. From the people who'd rather silence you than face the truth. She didn't respond, but she walked inside. The apartment was too beautiful. Luna wandered through its silence like it might collapse under her breath. The floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the bay. The kitchen gleamed like no one had ever cooked in it. She opened a drawer, everything was labeled, organized, cold. But in the fridge, she found something unexpected. Tofu, lemon, whole wheat bread, the exact order she had delivered the day they met. She stood there, stunned. He remembered. Later they sat in that perfect kitchen. No suits, no spotlight. Just two people and a bowl of vegetable soup. Ethan rolled up his sleeves. Luna chopped herbs. You used to cook? She asked, surprised by how natural he looked beside the stove. I worked in a kitchen in Taipei for 3 years. She laughed. That's not on your LinkedIn. No one would invest in a CEO who once peeled onions for 12 hours straight. She paused. I would. Their eyes met. Something shifted. Luna stirred the soup. You're not what I expected. He smiled faintly. Neither are you. Later they sat on the balcony, watching the fog roll in. Luna pulled her knees to her chest, her hoodie sleeves pulled over her hands. Ethan stood beside her, hands in his pockets. Do you ever think about what life might have been if that one moment never happened? She asked. He nodded. All the time. She turned to him. So why don't you go back? Because I don't want to. He blinked. I don't want to live in a world where we never met, he said softly. For a moment, the city disappeared. There was only the sound of her breath and his. Then a light flickered across the street. She stiffened. Did you see that? He turned. A figure darted into the alley across the way. Ethan was already dialing. Zhao, we've got eyes on us. The security team responded in 10 minutes. But by then the figure was gone. Luna stood in the doorway, arms crossed, heart pounding. Someone was watching? Ethan nodded. Victor's running out of moves. Now he's trying to scare us. Well, she said, he's doing a good job. He stepped closer. You can still walk away. She met his gaze, steel in her voice. I've been running my whole life. I'm done. He exhaled, long and slow. Then, without planning it, without permission, he reached for her hand. And she didn't pull away. Not this time. They didn't kiss that night. But in the silence between them, something spoke louder than touch. Something like hope. Something like the beginning of a love that neither of them believed they deserved. Until now, Chapter 6, Confessions in the Rain. It was raining when Ethan drove Luna home. Not the kind of rain that passes through a city unnoticed, but the kind that turns sidewalks into rivers and shadows into threats. The kind that makes even the most powerful man roll down his window just to feel something real. Luna sat quietly in the passenger seat, fingers tracing fog on the glass. You don't have to walk me to the door, she said, as they turned onto her cracked street. I know, Ethan replied, unbuckling his seatbelt anyway. She almost smiled. Her neighborhood looked even smaller from beside him, peeling paint, twisted fences. The kind of place where ambition came to die and survival got handed down like rent. But tonight she didn't care what he saw. She wanted him to see it all. She led him up the short steps and opened the door to the familiar smell of rice and damp clothes. Pedro ran to the entryway, socks sliding. His eyes widened when he saw Ethan. You brought the rich guy? Pedro, Luna hissed. Ethan chuckled, crouching. You're still fixing to be an inventor? I made a catapult from a coat hanger. Ethan raised a brow. You just made my day. Pedro beamed. Maria was sitting in her chair by the window, wrapped in a blanket. Her eyes were tired but kind. Luna bent beside her. Mom, this is Ethan. Maria looked up. For a moment, her expression flickered between surprise and understanding. You're the one who saw her, she said, voice thin but clear. Ethan stepped forward, humbled. I suppose I did. They sat together for a while. Luna poured tea. Ethan listened as Maria told stories about Luna's childhood, how she used to cook for Pedro using nothing but rice, garlic, and imagination. He made breakfast feel like a feast, Maria said, smiling. She still does, Ethan replied, and Luna nearly dropped her cup. Later, Luna walked him out. The rain hadn't let up. They stood at the foot of the stairs under the rusted awning, close but careful. I wasn't sure you'd come in, she said. I wasn't sure you'd want me to. I didn't, she admitted, but you fit in better than I expected. Ethan looked up at the rain, then back at her. You think I don't understand this world. She didn't answer. I grew up in places like this, he said quietly. I learned to work in kitchens because I didn't have anything else. I built Stratus Tech with a recycled laptop and $2 in my bank account. Luna blinked. You never said that. No one ever asked. I paused. Why me? She whispered. He stepped closer. Because you see everything and still choose to care. Because you fight when it'd be easier to run. Because in a world that's obsessed with image, you stay real. Luna swallowed hard. I'm not good at this, she said. Me neither. A long silence stretched between them. Then a distant clap of thunder rolled over the city. He moved closer, close enough to feel her breath. She didn't move. So he did what he'd wanted to do since the moment she walked into his crisis room. He kissed her. Not like the world was ending, but like it was just beginning. They pulled apart slowly, both breathless. Rain ran down their faces like tears they hadn't cried. Tomorrow, she whispered. You'll wake up and remember I'm still the girl they're trying to bury. Ethan cupped her face, steady. That'll dig. And with that he turned and walked through the rain like it belonged to him. Luna stood in the doorway long after he was gone. Hurtful for the first time in years. Chapter 7. Broadcast to Destroy. The invitation came in gold foil. A national television show. Star of Gastronomy, Redemption Edition. An elite culinary contest, watched by millions. At the bottom of the page, one name stood out like a dare. Special guest judge, Victor Menson. Luna froze when she read it. It wasn't an opportunity. It was a trap. You shouldn't do it, Ethan said, arms folded, jaw clenched. They were back in his apartment, rain sliding down the windows like the night hadn't ended. He's baiting you, he added. He wants you humiliated. I know, Luna replied. He stepped forward. Then why go? She met his eyes. Steady. Calm. Because my father never got to tell his story, but I still can. The studio lights were merciless. Everything gleamed. Marble countertops, chrome utensils, judges' smiles sharpened like knives. Luna stood on her mark, the camera zooming in. Behind her apron, her hands trembled. The host, flamboyant and theatrical, beamed. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we welcome a contestant the world loves to debate. He turned toward her like revealing a scandal. Luna Rivera, daughter of the late Carlos Rivera, the chef accused of the worst culinary disaster in state history. The audience gasped. A few clapped. Others just watched. Luna didn't flinch. She bowed her head slightly. Thank you for having me. Victor smirked from behind the judges' table. Let's see what you've inherited. The challenge was cruel. 60 minutes. No prepared ingredients. All pantry items hidden. Sabotage disguised as creative difficulty. Her station had a malfunctioning stove and chipped knives. One contestant whispered loud enough for the mic to catch it. Hope she doesn't poison us. Luna shut her eyes and remembered her father's words. In chaos, find the quiet. That's where flavor begins. She began moving with intention. Simple ingredients. Fresh herbs. She built her dish from instinct, not ego. The timer ticked down. 5 minutes left. Smoke poured from another station. A judge sneezed. Luna plated her final element. Rosemary touched tartare with lemon-infused reduction and stepped back. Tasting began. Victor poked her dish with his fork like it might explode. He took a bite, chewed, then smiled, faint and venomous. "Edible," he said, "but nothing exceptional. Like your father." Leary said nothing. Another judge took a bite and frowned. This reminds me of something." She turned to Luna. "This combination of citrus and rosemary, it's your father's signature. The one before the incident." The room fell silent. Victor's smile twitched. The judge continued was memory, and courage, and something you don't find in textbooks. Luna met Victor's eyes. "I didn't inherit shame," she said. "I inherited resilience." Applause, first scattered, then rising. The votes were tallied. By a single point, Luna won. Ethan waited backstage, dressed in black, unreadable under the low lights. When she stepped off stage, hair damp with sweat, eyes red from restraint, he didn't speak. He just pulled her into his arms and held her like she was something he couldn't afford to lose. "You were brilliant," he whispered. "They wanted to destroy me." They didn't," he said. "Because you showed up." "No," he corrected. "Because you didn't back down." Outside the studio, reporters crowded like vultures. Cameras, flashes, questions. "Luna, are you and Ethan Hale in a relationship? Did you manipulate your way into the competition? Is your win a setup for sympathy?" She stood still in the chaos, then said softly but clearly, "My name is Luna Rivera. I cook because it reminds me of love. If you want a scandal, go look for one. If you want truth, taste the food." And with that, she walked past the cameras, hand in Ethan's, head high. They hadn't broken her. They had broadcast her. And still she stood. Chapter 8. Evidence buried in silence. The storm that followed Luna's win was not on television. It came in shadows, quiet, coordinated, and dangerous. Within 24 hours of her broadcast victory, 3 corporate sponsors threatened to pull out of Stratistech. The board called an emergency vote. Headlines screamed, "Ethan Hale's obsession jeopardizes billion-dollar tech empire. Is the CEO in love with a criminal's daughter?" But inside Ethan's private office, the real battle had just begun. Zhao handed over a red folder. "We found him." "Rivera?" Ethan asked, already scanning the file. "Detective Eduardo Rivera, the man who led the investigation against Carlos Rivera, retired, living under a false name in Lisbon." Ethan's voice was low. "Does he know we're coming?" Zhao hesitated. "Not yet, but if he knows someone's looking, he might vanish again." "Book the jet," Ethan said. "We leave at midnight." He didn't tell Luna. Not until he was on the tarmac. She answered his call half asleep, her voice groggy. "You're leaving?" "I have to," he said. "There's a chance to clear your father's name. I can't waste it." Pause. "I'm coming with you." "No," he said gently. "It's safer here." "Ethan," he cut her off. "You've done enough. Let me carry this part." Before she could argue, the line went dead. She stared at the screen, his name still glowing. A part of her already knew this wouldn't be easy. In Lisbon, the truth didn't come quickly. It came in whispers. It took 3 days to find Rivera. He lived in a crumbling apartment near the docks. When Ethan knocked on the door, Rivera opened it slowly, saw the bodyguards behind him, and sighed. "I was wondering when this day would come." The confession was quiet. No drama, just guilt. "I was paid off," Rivera said. $2 million, cash. I doctored the toxicology reports. Carlos's desserts weren't poisoned. The wine was, switched by Victor's people. Ethan leaned forward. "Why?" Rivera's face was hollow. Because Carlos was opening his own restaurant. He had Michelin interest. Victor panicked. He wanted to destroy him before the press found out. He paused, then added, "I regret it every day." Ethan didn't speak. He just hit record. Hours later, as Ethan prepared to fly home, Zhao walked in, face pale. They found out. Who? Victor. The board. Maybe both. They know what we found. Doesn't matter. What matters is, he swallowed. Your security detail found blood outside your office. Ethan froze. Someone tried to break in, Zhao added. We think they were looking for you or for Luna. Ethan was already dialing her number. No answer. Again. Still nothing. Find her, Ethan said, already moving. Now. Back in San Francisco, Luna felt it before she saw it. That instinct, some ancient thing inside her, tightened. She walked faster. A black car slowed behind her. A door opened. Posen's daughter, a voice sneered. She turned and ran. But a man grabbed her from behind, yanking her into the alley. Tell your boyfriend to stay quiet, the other said. She fought, but it wasn't enough. Headlights. Tires screeched. Let her go. Ethan's voice cut through the rain like a blade. Security guards rushed in. The attackers fled. Ethan ran to her, soaked and frantic. She collapsed into him, trembling. You came back, she whispered. Of course I did. Later, inside the safety of Ethan's apartment, Luna sat beside him, her hand in his. You almost died for this, she whispered, eyes shining. He didn't speak. He just opened the folder and laid the confession in front of her. This, he said, clears your father's name. She covered her mouth with both hands, sobbing. Didn't deserve to die thinking no one believed him. Ethan pulled her into his arms. He didn't. Not anymore. But outside, the world was watching. Victor wasn't finished, and when they turned on the TV the next morning, they saw the cost. Ethan Hale, under board review, temporary suspension effective immediately. The battle wasn't over. It was only just beginning. Chapter 9, the final course. The courthouse was packed. Not with lawyers, but with press. Not with truth, but with noise. Still, the video played. Eduardo Rivera's confession echoed through the room like thunder. Victor Menzin paid me. I buried the evidence. And in one sentence, Luna's world broke open. Not in ruin, in relief. Later, Luna sat in front of her father's cookbook, her fingers brushing the final page, where his handwritten message waited like a prayer. Danielle, they'll taste your truth. Let it be undeniable. Her phone buzzed. A message from the National Culinary Federation. You've been selected as a finalist for the annual invitational. Victor Menzin was listed as a co-sponsor. Of course he was. Ethan, still recovering, still suspended, read the message over her shoulder. You don't have to go, he said. You've already proven enough. She shook her head. Not to myself. The final round was held at a historic convention center in Napa. Luna walked in alone, hair pulled back, apron crisp, her father's knife in her bag. Miguel, her quiet, loyal friend from the gala, greeted her with a grin. You're late. I'm right on time, she replied. 8 chefs. One theme, reinvention. The challenge. Take a classic and make it yours. Luna didn't hesitate. He chose her father's dish. Ocean and earth. Gallops, wine reduction, forest herbs. But she'd add one thing he never dared. Lemon zest. A quiet nod to the tofu lunch that started it all. Victor watched from the mezzanine, eyes cold. He leaned toward a producer. Turn up the heat, let's see what the daughter of a dead man does under pressure. The oven temperature was rigged. The timer flickered. One of Luna's burners cut out halfway through. Miguel panicked. They're messing with us. I know, she said, calm. She moved without flinching, adjusted her steps, repurposed elements. Built a new flavor arc from the scraps of sabotage. This is what he taught me, she whispered. You cook through the storm. 3 hours later, the dishes were presented. Her plate was simple, balanced, unapologetic. Victor leaned forward, expecting failure. The judges tasted. First, silence. Then, a murmur. A closed eye. A trembling smile. One whispered, "This is Carlos's soul, reborn." Then came the final announcement. winner of the 24th Annual Invitational. A pause that lasted forever. Rivera. The crowd rose to its feet. She didn't smile right away. She just looked up, past the lights, past the rafters, as if searching for someone she couldn't see. "Dad," she whispered, "we made it." That night, Ethan waited outside the center. She ran to him. He caught her mid-step and spun her once like they were weightless. "I knew you would," he said, burying his face in her hair. "I didn't." "But I did," he whispered, "since the moment you fixed a broken system and handed me tofu." They laughed, then cried, then just held each other like time finally owed them something soft. A week later, Stratistech's board reversed its suspension. Victor Menzin was indicted, and Luna's father was posthumously cleared of all charges. But that wasn't the victory she held closest. It was the opening night of her own restaurant, Rivera. Simple tables, warm lights. Every dish told a piece of the story she once tried to bury. And at table 12, beneath a dim sconce, Ethan Hale took her hand. "Ready for the next course?" She smiled. "With you? Always." Chapter 10. A Love Not in the Code. 6 months later, the restaurant Rivera was booked 3 months in advance. Luna still woke up at 5:30 a.m., still wiped the tables herself before service, still tasted the lemon reduction in every batch of sauce like her father taught her. But her life was unrecognizable now. Her mother's health had stabilized. Pedro was thriving in a STEM scholarship program. And Ethan Hale was no longer a billionaire mystery. He was hers. That morning, she found him in her kitchen, hair messy, shirt half-buttoned, flipping pancakes badly. She leaned in the doorway, arms crossed. "You realize you're burning breakfast." He turned, grinning. "Good morning to you, too. You're supposed to be at a board meeting." "I resigned last week." She blinked. "You what?" He shrugged. "They offered to reinstate me. I declined. I'm building something new, something quieter." She crossed the kitchen slowly. "So what are you now?" He reached for her waist. "Yours." Later, in the garden behind Rivera, guests gathered under golden string lights. Alina, now strong enough to walk with a cane, sat at a table by the fountain. Pedro passed out appetizers in a crisp white shirt, pausing only to steal chocolate from the dessert tray. Luna wore soft ivory, no veil, no lace, just elegance and truth. Ethan stood beneath the arbor, heart in his throat. When she reached him, neither said a word. Until the officiant asked, "Do you have vows?" Luna smiled. "I do." She turned to Ethan. "You were a storm I never expected, and a shelter I didn't believe I deserved. But somehow, in the wreckage, we built something beautiful." He took her hands. "Before you, I solved systems. After you, I started understanding souls. You cracked my walls like code. And now? I never want to rebuild them." The guests blinked away tears. When they kissed, it wasn't dramatic. It was certain. Later that night, they sat on the rooftop alone. Wind in their hair, the city glowing quietly below. Luna leaned into Ethan's chest, his jacket draped over her shoulders. "You okay?" he whispered. "I've never been more okay," she said. Then she reached into her pocket, pulled out a small object. He held it in his palm. It was the old delivery receipt from the day they met, faded, wrinkled, still legible. "Order 49, lemon tea and tofu." He laughed, soft and stunned. "You kept this?" She nodded. Some things change everything, even when they're small. Then she took his hand and placed it gently over her stomach. He stilled. His eyes widened. "You're..." She nodded. Tears pooled in his lashes. "A girl," she whispered. "I just know it." He kissed her knuckles. Then her forehead. Then her lips. "We'll name her Hope," he said. Una smiled. Because in that moment, beneath the stars, with the city behind them and the future in front of them, there were no more systems to fix, no past to outrun, only this, a love not written in code, but in quiet acts, second chances, and a heartbeat just beginning. Some loves don't arrive loudly, They just stay. In the end, Luna didn't become famous for her victory. Not really. People came to her restaurant not because she beat a 3-star chef or exposed a billionaire's lie, but because her food told the truth. It was in the warmth of her sauces, in the quiet courage of her plating, and the scent of rosemary that drifted out her doors each morning like memory itself. What she built wasn't just a restaurant. It was a place where people believed again, where mistakes weren't final, where second chances were served with salt and sweetness, where legacy lived not in fear, but in flavor. Ethan Hale never returned to the boardroom. He chose love over leverage, a daughter over dividends, a small kitchen over skyscrapers. He learned that power doesn't come from silence, it comes from choosing the right thing, even when it costs everything. That some women don't want to be rescued. They just want to be seen. As for Luna, she still kept her helmet by the door, still remembered the night she was just a girl with tofu in a backpack, wandering into a crisis with no idea she was someone's solution. Because that's how love often arrives. Not dressed like a prince, not written in perfect code, but wrapped in the ordinary. A glance, a dish, single second, and the courage to stay when everything tells you to run. If you've ever felt like Luna, like your past was louder than your name, like the world only saw what you'd lost, not what you carried. Like love was something meant for someone easier, quieter, or more beautiful. Let this story be your reminder. You are not the sum of your pain. You are the recipe someone will cherish. And your second chance is still on the stove, waiting. So, hold on. Sometimes it only takes 1 second for everything to change. And when it does, let love in. Tell us in the comments, what would you name the dish that defines your journey? We'd love to hear it. And if someone you know needs a little hope today, send this story their way. Because sometimes healing begins with just one plate, and one person brave enough to believe again.